Powered mobile equipment plays a key role in the construction industry. However, the construction industry has experienced numerous fatal incidents where workers have been crushed by vehicles or mobile equipment. Many of these incidents did not involve a spotter and/or occurred as a result of inadequate planning or communication. When utilized in appropriate situations, the use of a properly trained and competent spotter can play a significant role in preventing workplace damage, injuries, and fatalities. So we have an understanding that the use of spotters is advantageous to the safe execution of work with heavy equipment. Are they used at all times? Not necessarily. But here are some common scenarios encountered on construction sites when spotters should be used. Spotters should be utilized when navigating with materials, working in tight or congested areas to assist in monitoring the operator's blind spots, working around overhead utilities or structures, excavating around buried facilities, and on sites congested with heavy traffic and/or ground personnel. While every construction site will present different scenarios, it's important to recognize the site-specific hazards and identify when the use of a spotter will help eliminate or control those hazards. So does just having a spotter make things safe? No, not really. A spotter contributes to a safe work site only if they are properly trained and understand their function. They must recognize the equipment requirements and limitations and be able to give clear direction to operators. Not everyone can be an effective spotter, and recognizing some of the requirements needed is essential in selecting the right person to do the job. A spotter needs to possess the following skills. Must have a strong understanding of the task, good vision and be able to judge distances with accuracy, clearly understand all communication protocols, including signals to be used to direct equipment operators, be fit for duty, including the strength and ability to stand for longer periods of time, and may need to be able to walk significant distances. They must remain diligent and alert in recognizing changing conditions and hazards. Understand the need for and maintain the care and appropriate personal protective equipment needed for the job. Possess a responsible attitude in maintaining a safe work environment for themselves, the operator, and their work site. Employers need to recognize these requirements, and workers tasked with spotting duties need to demonstrate these skills. The wrong person tasked to spot equipment can result in significant damage, injury, or even death. We've identified the requirements and expectations needed of a suitable spotter. However, before any work can begin, a hazard assessment must be conducted. This process must include all personnel involved in the task at hand and is required to be reevaluated and updated as the task or day progresses. While every task and site will pose their own hazards, some general hazards to consider as it pertains to the spotter's role can be applicable in all operations. Consider ground conditions. Is it smooth and dry, or is it slippery and uneven? Is there a slip or trip potential for the spotter? Do the ground conditions present a potential rollover concern for equipment? What about hazards above? Are there overhead power lines, structures, or work areas present where the spotter or equipment will be working? Are there buried utilities in the area, and have these been identified and marked? If spotting equipment during excavation work, all utilities must be located and positively identified. Are adequate ground disturbance clearances being maintained, and do you know what the clearances for mechanical excavation are? Is the work area congested, or does it present restricted movement for the equipment? With pivoting equipment such as excavators, how much room does the equipment have to operate considering their swing radius? Are other workers in the area of the mobile equipment? What are the blind spots of the particular equipment? And what are the safe positions for the spotter to be to both direct the operator and stay clear of blind spots or pinch points? Is the spotter positioning safe in the event of operator error, mechanical failure, or equipment upset? Does everyone involved fully understand the communication protocols or signals to be used and the method of communication established? Are two-way radios to be used in combination with visual signals, or are the spotter and operator relying solely upon visual communication and signals? These are some of the most common and critical questions to consider when completing your hazard assessment. You will never control a hazard that you do not identify. It's possible that one of the most critical controls to consider after assessing the hazards begins with spotter positioning. By ensuring the spotter is clear of blind spots, in constant visual contact with the operator, and on the best ground conditions available, the hazards for personal harm to the spotter can be greatly reduced. This position must always provide a safe emergency route for the spotter in the event of equipment upset, mechanical failure, or operator error. It's also critical to ensure the spotter is clearly visible to the operator both in their line of sight and clearly identified with the use of Class II high-visibility vest and possibly arm gauntlets. General positioning should always adhere to the following practices. Never stand directly in front of or directly behind any equipment. Always avoid pinch or crush points. When hoisting materials or equipment, never walk or stand underneath a load under any circumstance. Stay clear of equipment blind spots. If you can't see the operator, they can't see you. Ensure footing is stable and don't stand in positions or on ground that possess slipping hazards or presents potential to collapse, such as at the edge of an excavation. When possible, position yourself in an area that minimizes movement. This reduces the likelihood of slips and trips and also helps the operator know where you are at all times. If an operator ever loses sight of the spotter, they must immediately cease operation and re-establish line of sight with the spotter. Prior to beginning work and as part of the hazard assessment, the spotter and operator should conduct a full walk-around of the equipment. This walk-around provides an opportune time to communicate blind spots or machine-specific requirements. This communication gives the spotter more information to safely guide the operator. Whenever equipment must travel along a route, always plan ahead by inspecting the desired path and minimize the distance of travel, especially when the equipment is in reverse. While two-way radios provide an effective method of communication, they may not always be available, which emphasizes the fact that the spotter and operator must always maintain visual contact with one another. This stands true even when two-way radios are being used. All signals to be used must be clearly understood by the operator, spotter, and the personnel on the construction site. As a spotter, you will need to approach equipment. However, you need to execute this in a particular manner. Before entering the swing radius or safe distance areas, establish eye contact with the operator and communicate your intent to approach using hand signals or with two-way radio. Wait until the operator acknowledges your communication, places the blade, buckets, forks, etc. on the ground, and places engine in neutral or turns off the equipment. Only after this has been completed and the operator signals you to approach may you do so. Now it's time to take a look at what these signals are and how to perform them. These signals are applicable for all equipment and vehicles. When signaling, ensure all signals are clear, deliberate, and conducted at a speed the operator can clearly interpret. To direct an operator to proceed slowly, raise both arms, then bend repeatedly toward head and chest, and then extend. Always face your palms in the direction of desired travel. To direct an operator to turn, point one arm to indicate the direction to turn. Bend the opposite arm repeatedly toward your head to indicate continued turning. Often when signaling, you will be assisting the operator to get close to another object. To assist in identifying the stopping point for the operator, face palms forward with hands above head indicating the distance remaining. As the vehicle or equipment nears the stopping point, bring elbows and hands together, reflecting the distance remaining. Always keep in mind that distance signaling is a coarse measurement and equipment may need more room to come to a complete stop. To stop movement of equipment or vehicle, cross both arms above the head. Any situation requiring equipment or vehicles to stop in an emergency should be demonstrated as follows. Start with hands clasped overhead, then extend downward repeatedly until the vehicle stops. To direct equipment or vehicles out of the area, point at the driver and gain eye contact. Turn body while maintaining contact and extend arms in the desired direction of travel. In all cases, the operator must take direction and guidance from the spotter. In situations where there may be need for more than one spotter, such as maneuvering equipment in tight areas, only one designated spotter must give operator direction. Conflicting direction to an operator can be disastrous. The only time another spotter should give direction directly to the operator is in the event the emergency stop command must be given. We reviewed the general signals earlier, but spotting for certain equipment such as an excavator or backhoe does require understanding other signals. To direct pivoting equipment to swing, simply raise the appropriate arm with the hand extended in the direction the equipment is to swing. Equipment with buckets can be directed to open by extending your arm at a 45-degree angle and with hand flat, pointed at the ground, straighten out. To signal to close the bucket, with arm and hand extended at 45 degrees, cusp hand and bend towards the body. To signal for the operator to bring dipper or stick in, with arm out at a 45-degree angle, bend at the elbow towards the waist. To signal for the operator to move the dipper or stick out, reverse the in signal. Spotters should always be utilized when completing simple lifts or the moving of materials. Many lifts and the hoisting of materials may require the use of trained and competent riggers, as hoisting materials and equipment is a high-risk task and must be treated with great care and adequate hazard control. When moving material, ensure the spotter and operator plan to inspect the route prior to movement. Remember to watch for overhead power lines and other utilities, ensuring that the appropriate clearances are maintained. If power lines are present, these should be marked with goalposts, clearly identifying the required clearances. On congested, restricted, or highly active work sites, traffic control personnel or devices may be required prior to moving material and equipment. To signal for the operator to hoist material or equipment, with forearm vertical, forefinger pointing up, move hand in a small horizontal circle. To lower a load, with arm extended downward, forefinger pointing down, move hand in a small horizontal circle. Working around overhead power lines is a critical task that poses increased risk of injury or death due to electrocution, fire or explosion due to contact, equipment damages, and power or service outages. The spotter plays a critical role in these operations. A spotter must always have a clear view of the power line and operator and have the ability to immediately inform operator of danger. The use of an air horn is often employed in this situation. The spotter must also remain within the safe limits of approach as defined by occupational health and safety regulations and not encroach upon these distances. In Alberta, a minimum distance of 7 meters clearance to power lines is required. However, many companies may have more stringent distances in their policies. If ever work is required to be completed within the safe limit of approach, there are significant additional controls that must be put in place prior to work commencing, including contacting the power line owner. We've spent a lot of time discussing the spotter, their requirements, and the need to communicate well with operators. But safe spotting operations also require a lot from the operator. In order for an operator to work safely with the spotter, they need to follow some guidelines as well. While mandatory in all situations, operators need to ensure mirrors, windows, and visual aids such as backup cameras are clean and clear of dirt, mud, and in cold weather, defrosted. They need to follow the spotter's direction and ensure the spotter is in the correct location to monitor active blind spots at all times. If communication, signals, or directions are unclear, it is the operator's responsibility to stop the equipment to clarify or reassess the situation. They must not operate the equipment independently or disregard their spotter. If they are to lose visual contact with their spotter, they are required to stop operations and reestablish visual contact. Operators must always operate their equipment at a safe and appropriate speed, regardless of whether or not they are working with a spotter. At times, things can go wrong despite efforts to prevent injuries to personnel or damage to equipment and property. If there is an emergency, all equipment should be shut down. Your site-specific emergency response plan, or ERP, will specify the procedures, which may vary slightly from site to site. Not knowing where to muster can put you and others at significant and unnecessary risk. You need to know your responsibilities and where your muster point is located. The use of powered mobile equipment isn't going to disappear from construction sites, but the harm associated to people, property, and the environment can. Through completing appropriate hazard assessments, putting the associated controls in place, and by utilizing competent and trained spotters when necessary, can greatly reduce the risk to life and limb.